Hi everyone and welcome to my show. I am going to have a discussion with you today about the Republican debate, because it is embarrassing. I look at it from an Australian perspective, some, 1,200 kilometres away or whatever we are, and think, what in the hell are you doing? How can you have eight incompetent people all on the stage at one point talking about issues of which they basically know very little about to start with, and have such a diverse perspective? Absolutely blow me away. I was I was really disappointed in Chris Christie because he has come across as being the only person that was prepared to stand up against Trump, and he failed today. Now, he might have failed because the audience was against him, and that's fair enough, and that when he went to say certain things against Trump, he was booed, and I think that was a bit disconcerting for him, because up until now he's been busily appearing on CNN and MSNBC and getting away with it, I think, and being able to say what he needed to say. But his audience today, in front of thousands of Republicans, gave him a different message about what he is trying to say and whether or not they accept it or not. And remembering that at the end of the day, these are the people that are going to be selecting the candidate. Now, I do need to say the two big winners out of today's Republican debacle were Trump, number one. He made the right decision by not being there. And as someone said, let's talk about the elephant in the room. No, let's just talk about the elephant, which was Donald Trump, and that he was blessed by not being there. And the other winner, I think, was Joe Biden and the Democrats, because anybody with any reasonable sense of reality would know that any of these candidates were not suited for a role as presidency, except, I do have an exception to that though, and that is, I think, Nikki Haley. I think Nikki came across as being a person who was prepared to confront Trump, who's prepared to abide by the rule of law, except when it came to the question in relation to excusing Trump if he was charged with a felony. Would that mean that he was not or should not be president? Or whether or not they would in fact exonerate him, pardon him, if that occurred. Now, none of them agreed that they're quite okay with him being locked up in jail, and that was okay. All of them, in fact, eventually stated or didn't make any comment whatsoever about the impact of him being charged and whether or not he should still stand for the presidency. But the whole overall thing was entertainment plus, because they had Ratawani, or whatever his name is, who's just a right-wing crazy man with all the conspiracy theories under the sun, who has no hope in hell of winning the presidency, who's there simply as a performance artist, and that's about as far as it goes. Mike Pence didn't score any votes whatsoever. I don't think. He just stayed where he was. DeSantis was just DeSantis. What can we say? His nondescript individual who believes that he could float along on Trump's coattails and that would be enough to get him elected. I think at the end of the day, what this proved was that Trump does not need to do anything in order to win the primary vote. Win the vote for the Republican Party. Because basically, apart from Nikki Haley, no one is within cooey of him, and he will romp in at this particular point unless something really interesting takes shape. And the reason for that is that the Republican Party is so embedded in Trumpism, whatever that means, whatever this fat, lurky jerk and this coloured individual means in terms of coloured being orange, what this means to them and why they see him as this sort of demigod who only knows, I've talked about this many times before, do not understand it, don't understand how rational people could probably ever see Trump as being the type of person that one would want to have running a government. Clearly they did a few years ago. But really right now, when you look at these other 8 people that are on this stage, none of them fit either. So the Republicans generally are bereft of anyone who could do the job as presidency in a way which would be completely satisfying to the majority of the American people. So who's the winner? Well, apart from Trump, certainly Joe Biden, because regardless of the fact that none of these people have got any substantive policies that they can talk about, their criticism is continually about Joe Biden, regardless of the fact that inflation in the United States is probably one of the lowest in the G7 economies, that unemployment has gone down, that they're moving along in terms of investment within their country, and a whole lot of other good things have happened because Joe Biden is there. There's certainly things they're not going to talk about, granted. But the things they do talk about, which is border control or the lack of gun controls or whatever they're talking about there, mean nothing. The other thing they talk about is abortions, and none of them are in favour of reversing Roe versus Wade. So that, in terms of social issues and economic issues, they're stuffed. They've got nothing to offer. They're not really interested in that. They're interested in this performance that they put on because I guess at some level somebody realises they must challenge Trump. It won't do them any good. It may get some people some coverage they wouldn't normally get, Nikki Haley in particular, I think. Chris Christie is another one. But apart from that, it's going to be an absolute waste of space, time and energy. And Fox News, I don't know what the coverage was on Fox News. It'd be interesting to find out. But at the end of the day, this won't mean anything to anybody. And we here in the rest of the world, 12,000 kilometres away, are laughing. We don't have in this country this sort of sideshow. We don't. We will have, at election times, there will be debates between the leaders. And normally those debates are about policy. They're not all about mudslinging. If you want to have a look at what Australian politics looks like, the best thing you can do, but the worst thing you can do is watch Question Time. So this is an opportunity where the opposition get a chance to ask the government a whole host of questions and tries to put the government on the back foot with the types of questions that they're asking. And that in itself can be quite entertaining, watching the backwards and forwards, and they do have a go at each other. And sometimes the gloves are off and it's a no-holds-barred sort of conversation. But at least we can see what is happening. And also, what it does do is provide the government with an opportunity for the ministers for certain roles to talk about what they're doing in their portfolios that's helping us, the population. So this is a good thing. Which either side of politics you're on, there's this challenge to be able to answer questions from the opposition and to be able to set up conversations or at least have questions asked of you about the portfolio that you hold. In the United States, I don't seem to see any of that. I don't know where the secretaries of states are talking about those issues because they're not, strictly speaking, elected politicians. They are appointed individuals to each of those roles, whereas in our system we have ministers who perform that role, who are responsible to the electorate, their own electorate, plus the electorate as a whole, and their performance is gauged based on the outcomes that they are able to produce. And I guess that happens in the United States as well. But the point is, our ministers are open to scrutiny every single day, whereas I don't seem to see that so much in the United States system, given that they are supposedly the best democracy on earth. That in itself is a joke when one watches the Republican debacle that has been on ed for all of us to see today. So let me know what you think about any of that. Subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate that. Any comments down below would be greatly appreciated. And just make sure that you take care of yourself and others and that you be safe.